Hi everyone, welcome to Menopause Supports. My name is Sinead McNamara from the National Menopause Summit, and I'm delighted this afternoon to chat with the wonderful Maeve McClean. And Maeve is the Chief People Officer for Lidl Ireland and Lidl Northern Ireland, and we are so proud to have Maeve as one of our expert speakers at the 2024 National Menopause Summit, which takes place in the Aviva Stadium on the 11th and 12th of April this year. And Lidl have also come on board as one of our official summit partners, so we're thrilled to be working with such a progressive organisation and an organisation that has done so much in terms of introducing menopause supports as part of their HR policies. So Maeve, good afternoon. It's wonderful to chat with you. How are you keeping?
Good, thanks, Sinead. I'm thrilled to be here this afternoon. Thanks a million.
You're more than welcome. And I was saying to Maeve, guys, there before we press the record button, I've got quite a number of prompting notes and we've got a lot of stuff to talk about this afternoon, so we'll get into it. So Maeve, let's kick off with, I suppose, the results of our menopause survey. As you know, we conducted a nationwide menopause survey. We'd over 850 people respond to the survey, and we broke it into different categories. But in terms of menopause in the workplace, 53% of people responded by saying that menopause supports are not included in the employment policies, if you like, in their places of work. Now, this is, I know you're going to be obviously quite perturbed by that, as I am, but given that over 1 million women are over the age of 45 in this country, according to the latest census, how crazy is this, Maeve? Really, it's just incredible, isn't it?
It is, and it is because of all of what we know. I think the reason is, so it's crazy, but Sinead, it's not surprising.
No, of course not.
Like, it's only 2 years ago since we introduced our menopause supports, and we would have been one of the first major employers in Ireland to do that. So that only 53% or 53% don't have supports in work isn't hugely surprising. And I also think that from an employer's perspective, it's about information. So do they know what they don't know? Do they know what is needed? And I think for a lot of employers, it's also not really knowing where to start and how to go about it. So first of all, it's about education, and it's about employers understanding, why does it matter? Why should we have supports in the workplace? And there's a whole conversation around that as to why it matters and why we should, why any employer should, and what the benefit of having it is on so many different levels. But I think then the second part of that is knowing about how to go about doing that. And the same, 2 years ago, we didn't know how to go about doing that. So, and over 2 years ago, we didn't know that we needed those policies, and we didn't know the benefit of it. So I think it's for employers to get into that journey and get into that understanding first and foremost of why it matters and how it helps employees, managers, and the business itself. And then it's also understanding, and how do we do that? Because, you know, introducing policies sometimes can seem that it's, you know, it's complex, that it's expensive, that it's onerous. And all of those things are not the case here. But I think it's for employers to understand that and maybe learn from other employers like, you know, like ourselves, who've put policies in place as to how do you go about doing that. So it doesn't surprise me, since this conversation is relatively new for employers.
Agree. And just to totally agree with you and mirror what you're saying, doesn't surprise me either, Maeve. But one of the positive results actually was that, you know, the people who responded to that question responded in the affirmative. So 28% of people who responded said their employers actually do offer supports, which, bearing in mind, we are only 2-3 years into this conversation in terms of it being openly discussed and all that old shame taboo and all that old business now behind us, 28% could be considered quite a positive result as well. Do you know what I mean? But I agree with you. Education and awareness is obviously hugely important. And again, everybody is kind of aware of this because I've discussed everything about myself and my menopause on the internet at this stage of absolutely no shame at all, Maeve. And as it turns out, there's nothing private anymore. But I mean, when I went through my own menopause journey and wanted to include menopause and the workplace as part of the summit, even I at the time didn't understand the power of that, Maeve, to be quite honest with you. When I was putting the event together back in 2022, All that I knew as an individual was that menopause had had an absolutely detrimental effect on my ability to do my job. And it was just something that I obviously wanted to increase in the summit. So we've got menopause in the workplace, where you're presenting, obviously, Maeve, in the morning, and we've got the journey through menopause in the afternoon, which literally informs why we're introducing supports into menopause in the workplace. So hugely, hugely important. And of course, as well, through our survey, 76% of people came back and said that they felt that their work performance was negatively affected by menopause. So a very, very significant percentage.
And I get that. And I think a lot of us are involved because of a personal journey.
Yeah.
And I'm part of that personal journey as well. I'm, you know, I have the last 3 years entered into perimenopause, and I had no idea what was going on. And I can absolutely understand how 72% of people said that it has a negative impact on their performance. Of course it does. It has such, well, it can have, and not every woman is the same. So, you know, we're all a little bit different. I have different symptoms. My journey looks different to what yours probably did, and to somebody else's then as well. But I do know that the symptoms that I had absolutely impacted on my performance. And I'm, you know, operating, you know, 5 days a week. It's a full-time job. I'm, you know, you're trying to stand up in meetings. I'm standing in a board meeting. I'm trying to have consultations with employees. I'm, you know, trying to do all of these things. And I'm physically in pain. Physically in pain. And that was one thing for me. And the other big thing for me, so I have huge joint pain. And the other big thing for me was fatigue. I was exhausted. And I'm, you know, I've always given my job my full energy, my full passion, and I give it my all. And then you find you're absolutely floored by this, you know, unbelievable fatigue and tiredness, and you know, brought on for lots of reasons. One of them being that I was awake half the night. And that was part of it, because you know I had insomnia. So I can understand that there are so many women out there who say, this is affecting me in work. And if it's affecting you in work and you have no one to talk to, and you can't explain what's going on, and you know, you do need some kind of adjustments or some kind of accommodation or some kind of support, and there isn't anything there, there's no platform there, there's no forum there, there's no way for you to communicate that, that's really, really, really hard. How do you go into your boss and explain this? Whereas if there's a policy in place and everybody has been informed and there's knowledge out there and there's information out there, then you can come to work and you can explain, and the taboo is gone and the whole shroud of mystery is gone, and it's open and it's talked about, and you can come in, then you can explain. And it's not necessary that I want extra time off or I want to be off sick for, you know, sometimes it's just about, can I reschedule? Can I reorganize? Can I do things a little bit differently? I have colleagues who work in stores, and it's like, you know, maybe I do, you know, different shifts, or I can reorganize my shifts or reorganize the work that I'm doing. Because, you know, stores and warehouse, the work is very, very physical. So we've got 80% of the women in our business who are in that 35 to 55 bracket are working in physical jobs. So what can we do for them? So I get that performance is affected. Mine was affected. And being able to address that in work is very, very difficult if there isn't some kind of policy in there. There hasn't been some conversation started about it.
100%. And I mean, just touching on my experience, and the reason I'm furiously nodding along with you, Maeve, is because it so resonates with me. My major issue that I ran into in sort of around March, April of 2020 was brain fog, and crippling brain fog. I thought I was developing early onset dementia. And I said to Shell, who was my business partner and co-director on the Menopause Summit, and this was long before I'd even come up with the idea of it. I said to Shell around sort of Q4 of 2020, I'm finished. I'm over. I can't work anymore. Now, I didn't deliver this with joy in my heart, Maeve. I was monumentally disturbed by this. I felt the old me was evaporating. I couldn't even manage my diary, Maeve. You know, I mean, I was showing up, of course, everything was on Zoom at the time. I was showing up at the wrong time for meetings. I wasn't showing up when I was supposed to be there. Shell was telling me stuff And I was going, all right, okay. And then she was saying it to me again. And I was reacting like it was the first time that I had heard it. And Shell actually said to her partner, Ian, at the time, when I realized what was going on, went on HRT and all that business and spoke to Shell, during one of those 45-minute windows we got in COVID when we could go out for dinner. Do you remember that? When we could go into a restaurant for like 5 minutes. And I said to Shell, I have something to tell you, and I explained the menopause brain fog. And she literally, Maeve, went, oh, Jesus Christ, thank God. I was at home talking to Ian going, there's something really wrong with Sinead, and I was really worried about you. So now we're only a small organization and it's myself and herself. But if I was working for a large organization, Maeve, as you are, and there were none of those supports, I might fall into that percentage of women that go, I'm just out of here. This is not worth my life. This is so stressful. And of course, Maeve, as you know, one of the problems, which I'm sure you can relate to as well, is pretending everything is all right, is an extra stress and pressure on top of everything going tongue. Do you know what I mean? It's like so incredibly stressful. So tell me about, I know the wonderful Lorraine, one of your colleagues, Lorraine Garvey, was one of the first people, am I correct in saying this to you, in sort of addressing this with somebody at store level, which made its way up to yourself? Or how did that journey happen with Lorraine? Can you explain that to everybody?
Well, what had happened was, so I suppose take it back a little bit, was my own experience meant, and I was extremely fortunate that I was in a position that I could bring that straight into the boardroom.
Brilliant.
And say, guys, and
guess what?
There's another woman on the board with me as well, and say, there's something we need to do here. I need to talk to you about this. I need to explain to you why this matters in our workplace, where we have over 50% of our workforce is female. And I've said this so many times, I really, really hope it doesn't take having a perimenopausal or menopausal woman in the boardroom for change to happen in organizations.
Yeah.
I hope that organizations can make this change without that. But that is how it happened for us, is that it was a personal experience.
Okay.
And a lot of our policies over the years have come from people's different personal experiences that they've shared with us. But when I had shared that, and then we introduced our menopause policies and so on, and we went out looking for colleagues in the business who were prepared to talk about their journey and who were prepared to be menopause buddies to others. Because there's nothing like, as you can see by the two of us talking to each other, there's nothing like being able to talk to somebody else who understands.
Absolutely.
So Lorraine was one of the first who stepped up and said, I'm in this, and I'd love to take part as a menopause buddy. And at the time, actually, then we got chatting about it. And Lorraine's story is slightly different. She's a lot younger than I am. And her story is quite different because she was thrown into medically induced menopause after having treatment for cancer.
Right.
Which she is 5 years ago now, and she's doing really, really well, and she's fit and she's healthy. But it was a complete unknown for her. She said it was like being thrown off a cliff. And I've heard that expression from loads of women who went through medically induced or menopause, that it's like being thrown off because it happens overnight.
Of course.
And that was her situation. It happened overnight. She knew nothing about it. She had oncologists talking to her. She had gynaes talking to her. She had all sorts of doctors talking to her. But there was nobody talking to her about what was going to happen with her hormones.
Yeah.
So she shared her journey. And I remember when she shared, I was saying to her, I said, God, you're very open about all of this. And you said at the start, I'll talk to anyone about it.
Don't care anymore. No shame.
I'll talk to anyone. If it helps one woman, me sharing my story, then I'm happy to share my story. And then Grania Shuiga was doing her documentary on Tishi Cahir, and Lorraine told her story on that documentary literally to the nation. And I couldn't be proud of her for doing that, because telling those stories, getting out there, lifting the taboo, lifting the lid and the veil on all of this, gives all the rest of us the courage to do it, or the permission to do it, or it just to know it's possible. So that's why it was fantastic that Lorraine did that, not just internally for all of our colleagues, but also externally then as well. So she's been a great support to our menopause policies.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fabulous. And my sort of what I always visualize in terms of everything that's changing and developing and all of the, you know, the awareness that's increasing around menopause. It's like how I think about it in my mind, it's like, guys, the genie is out of the lamp now and no one can shove the genie back in. So anyone who is happy to step up and talk about these things, go for it, girl, or guys, everybody. Because I mean, certainly from the point of view of the National Menopause Summit, it was never my intention, Maeve, that would just be an event for women or an event just for midlife women, that was an educational platform for men, women, employers, interns, teenagers, if you want to bring them along. Because certainly, as again, from our survey results, I think it was about 63% of people who said, but no, it might have been a bit higher than that. I don't have this number in front of me, but so many people agreed that, of course, menopause should be covered as part of the school curriculum, because as you and I both know, you know, it is as definite, really bad English there, Sinead, but is absolutely going to happen for women in the same way that puberty happens for women. So it's so incredibly important. So getting back to Maeve, when you discussed this with your board members on the board, how did the guys take this and how was that received?
It wasn't just the guy, like, it was new for me, but I was learning about it. I was Googling my world. I was looking up my symptoms. I was talking to people, was finding things out. But Avril's on the board with us as well, and Avril's younger than me. And she's like, I don't know about this. I don't know anything about this. I'm dying to know about this and learn more about this. And, you know, because this will be part of my future, but it's also part of my present because of all the people I have working with me. And the guys, I honestly, I'm sure there was a bit of trepidation there. And I do remember they were like, so what had happened was I brought the topic, and then Loretta Dignam joined us from the Menopause Hub, and Loretta joined a board meeting. So Loretta joined a board meeting, and anyone who has heard Loretta speak knows that she doesn't sugarcoat any of this. You get it, all of it. You get it straight between the eyes. She's absolutely fact-based. She's evidence-based. She tells you exactly how it is. And she has a very, very compelling argument as to why boards of directors right across the country, internationally, should be looking at this topic and seeing why does it matter, and what's the business case for it. And she joined our board meeting. I know the guy we were looking at was like, oh, that's like, well, what do we do? I said, listen and ask questions. What kind of questions will we ask? I said, you'll have plenty by the end of it. You are, you know, you have sisters, you have wives, you have girlfriends, you have partners, you have friends, you have a world of people around you, and you have people who are working with you, and the openness was fantastic. So they listened. It was enlightening for all of us. We all learned so much. And I do think the big thing from it was we want to be an inclusive employer. We want people to come to work to give their very best. We want everybody to have a great day every day. And to make that happen, you need to make sure that you have an inclusive workplace where people can come to work. And you mentioned earlier on about the stress of hiding stuff, the stress of not being able to talk about stuff. We want you to come to work, and if you're having difficulties, talk to us about it. And let's see if we can figure this out together. And Loretta talked to us about how important it is then that we do have that openness in the workplace, that people can come, but also the business case, why it makes sense to have that inclusive workplace where people feel that they can continue to work for longer, that you don't get that 25% of women who think about leaving their job because of their symptoms. Or I think your recent survey said 7% who leave their job because of who've actually left they've left the workforce. Crazy. And to have women at that stage in their lives at 45, 50, 55, the wealth of experience
Totally.
How incredibly good those women have been at their jobs. They've gotten to, you know, to wherever they have gotten in their careers. And for that to be a risk to lose them, that'd be a huge loss to our business. That would be, you know, that would be a huge cost on all levels, and for us to lose those people. And if by bringing in supports and policies and education, we can help more women stay in the workforce for longer and get over that period and get into postmenopause, when I believe life is going to be amazing.
Amazing.
More amazing.
It's amazing.
I'm looking forward to it. That those women continue to work with us for much longer. We know people are working for longer for lots of reasons. We're living longer. We financially, people want to work for longer. Even for sense of purpose, people want to continue for longer. So let's not lose women at that point in time in their careers. Let them stay on, so that 50, 55, then they can catapult again forward in their careers. So Loretta explained all of that to us. The board really, really listened, took it on, signed off on our menopause policy and the supports that we put in place. And yeah, that was the start of it then for us.
No, I mean, look, well done and absolutely fantastic. And as you say yourself, Maeve, there's nothing like change coming from personal experience. Like, you know, like I think to myself, just in terms of the summit, as difficult and distressing and frightening as my menopause symptoms were, because as I say, I thought it was the beginning of the cognitive end for me, quite frankly. But having come through that, as you coming through your issues with perimenopause, I'm thankful for that now. Because if things hadn't been that bad, I wouldn't have had that fire in my belly, if you like, to kind of to create the summit, and then obviously work with the likes of yourself, who can go forward and educate, as you were saying at the top end of the conversation. People don't know what they don't know. So what we found at the summit is, through the menopause in the workplace piece, which of course you'll be contributing to this year, is that we are empowering and educating organizations on the introduction, on how important this is, and obviously advocating for more and more organizations to get on board in that regard. But again, touching on another point you made, Maeve, you know, for very, you know, simple accommodations and the lack of them, to have a situation where people with 20, 30 years experience walk out the door, 30 years experience, because I've no one to talk to, I'm mortified, I'm under massive pressure here, just does not, even if we only want to talk about business, even if we don't even want to talk about people's well-being from a business perspective, does not make sense at all. It's absolutely insane. So I was obviously doing some research on the wonderful supports that Lidl offers all of your employees, but particularly looking at your women. So you've got paid maternity, paid paternity, menopause awareness. As you say, you've partnered. Let me answer the question, or let you answer the question, should I say, rather than me. The sense of all of the stuff that you guys have introduced into Lidl, which is just so wonderful.
And a lot of it is, so a lot of the policies that we have brought in have been around different stages in people's lives. And I think that's where employers are now looking at, when you're talking about an inclusive place to work, we want multi-generational places to work, because that brings such great diversity.
Great
and
then
we all thrive in that environment. And it's supporting people at different stages. So whether it's really early on in your career, where you know, there's particular, maybe even you know, getting started with financial advice and financial support, maybe later on in your life, then when you're looking at fertility supports that we have brought in, and we brought in paid fertility year for all employees, and that's regardless of gender, for those who are going through that journey of trying to start the family. And we brought in a surrogacy policy only in the last month as well, which is also regardless of gender, and also that's it's been fantastic in being able to bring in lots of those policies. The menopause policy that we brought in, a lot of it was two guides. There was a guide for employees and a guide for managers, and there is access then to menopause specialists. So we pay for a consultation with the menopause specialist as well, for colleagues who want that. But it was interesting. I was talking to Tara, HR services, head of HR services earlier on, and I was telling her I was going to be talking to you this afternoon. She said, she was really interesting. She says, most of the calls don't come from women who are perimenopause or menopause. I said, so who's voting up about the menopause policy then? She says, managers. I have someone, I believe they are, I think someone is, I'm a bit worried about someone. This has kind of come on my radar. What will I do? Where will I find the information? I've read the guide, but I have some questions. How will I broach the conversation? And I thought that was just brilliant to hear.
Fantastic.
The converse that it's not all, because sometimes you think about, you know, policies are written and it'll be the me or the you who's poured over the policy to see what's in it for me or whatever. But actually, the majority of queries and questions that we're getting are coming from people's managers who are like, I've spotted this, I've seen this, there's something going on here. How will I start the conversation? How, I don't want to insult her, I don't want to, you know, and sometimes it is just about finding the right language and knowing that it's okay, or just waiting for someone to come to you. But it was cool to know that the policy that when we brought in the policies, there's one for managers on how to, and one for employees on what to, and that both policies are really getting used, and we have people taking up then the appointments with the Menopause Hub, with the specialist, with the menopause specialist then as well.
That fills my little heart with joy, Maeve, because it also mirrors, and I know you've said this yourself, and I've said this myself, this whole notion and this old notion that menopause is a women's problem, right? And if you know, it's, look, we all know at this point it isn't, but it's also great to hear that the hotline in Lidl is actually, in the main, the managers going, I'm educated enough, thank you Lidl, now to understand and be able to recognize that a particular individual may be having a particular problem, and how can I approach this person? And, you know, like, that is fantastic news, and does make the point that it's no longer a woman's problem as it was. Kind of, you were thrown in a corner and, you know, maybe just fade away there merrily and as quickly as you possibly can as well. That'd be really convenient. That has left the building, thank God. It's so positive.
It's part of life, Sinead, as much as everything else is part of life. And we have over the years, and I think all employers over the years have realized that this idea of, you know, you leave your private life at home, you know, back in the day when we started working back in the day, it's like, don't bring your private life, don't be bringing your problems to work and all that. That day is long gone. You bring your whole self to work. I bring all of my complicated self to work every day, and I bring my perimenopausal self to work every day, and the complications with that then as well. So there's, you know, those days are gone.
Agree.
And if we're letting everybody bring their whole self to work, then everybody's going through different things at different stages. And if we can talk to people about family planning, or you have a colleague going on with, you know, maternity, or a colleague who's going to take some parents' leave and he's going to spend some time at home. If you have other colleagues who are doing, I don't know, taking sabbaticals to do all sorts of other things or whatever, then colleagues who are going through perimenopause or menopause, that's also part of their life. So it's a point in time. All of us are going through different things at different times. And why would we shy away from one thing? Why would we not talk about this one thing? But we'll talk about everything else, you know, I don't know, sickness, illness, the joys, the births, deaths, marriages. We talk about everything. So why shy away from this one taboo subject? It's not. It shouldn't be.
Absolutely. And, you know, outside of the kind of workplace piece, Maeve, we got a lot of very positive results, or sort of positive feedback around menopause through our survey. So one of the wonderful piece of data that we captured through our respondents was that actually 76% of people considered you know, perimenopause and menopause an ideal time for change and growth in their lives. So like that's a really positive thing as well. Do you know what I mean? So like as I've said so many times in the past, you know, you may run into serious challenges with perimenopause and menopause, but if you're lucky enough to be able to get your symptoms under control, it can be an extremely creative and freeing part of your life. I think 73% of our people, of the people who responded to our survey, should I say, came back and said again that at perimenopause and menopause, they were less concerned with the opinions of others. And I think it's fair to say, as women, we're very concerned concerned, and I was too, when we're younger, of the opinions of other people and being, you know, pleasing everybody. And the last person I'm pleasing is myself, and all of that stuff that every, I think, woman can resonate with. So, you know, to be in a situation where it's a great time for change and growth, and to be working also for an employer like Lidl, who is there to support you, who recognizes what is happening, and that this is a, you know, an absolute natural stage of the female life cycle, as natural as puberty and as predictable as puberty, is just an absolutely wonderful thing. So bravo to you, Maeve. Bravo to you and your team at Lidl to have embraced all of this. And as I say, nothing like being at the coalface yourself to get the fire into your belly to make changes. Nothing like experiencing it yourself, but it's incredibly positive. And you know, we've got a huge amount of organizations, as we did in Dublin and Cork last year in 2023 for the first two summits, joining us. And I have no doubt that they will be very interested to hear your experience and hear, you know, of all of the supports that you guys introduced into Lidl. So it's absolutely super. Are you excited to be on stage in the Aviva Stadium, Maeve?
Excited and nervous. I think I have the fear that that moment of brain fog will take my words away and I'll be left standing, but it'll be fine. I am really looking forward to it because I am passionate about this now. It's had a huge impact on my personal life, and it's had a huge impact on many of my friends. Obviously, I know my friends are the same age as me and so on as well. To be able to share information and educate. I think it's really, really important. You talked about how, you know, it should be on the curriculum in school. It just seems so far away at 15 or 16 to be learning about it. And when else do you learn about these things?
Exactly.
So, you know, there is an opportunity as an employers that we can be part of the education. Since we went you know, public with our story, whether it was, you know, through press or TV, and we've had lots of organizations who have reached out to us, and that's also been a really, really fulfilling journey as well, to chat to organizations. How did you do it? And you know, we're delighted to do that because we learned from others then as well. You know, challenges that we hadn't thought about, or we get another perspective. So it's a great space for sharing, and it's lovely then to be able to talk to other organizations and other HR functions as to how they have done it or are looking to do it, and can we share our experience as well. So that's why I think the Menopause Summit is going to be a great platform for doing that. So yes, I am really, really looking forward to it.
Well, we're really excited to have you there. But I'm going to wrap this up now shortly, Maeve, because it's been an amazing chat with you. But just to say as well, obviously the summit is suitable for business delegates and private individuals. And the way that we designed the summit was that obviously we have quite a number of private consumers, if you like, who attend the summit. But I think that they understand as well that even if they're not there on behalf of their organization, even if they're not part of the HR or the management team, the vast majority of those people are working, and they can go back to their organization and say, listen, guys, I was at this summit. This is what I've heard. And this is something that we should really consider introducing. And from the business delegates' perspective, who are interested in introducing the policies into their workplaces, through our journey through menopause, our afternoon session, they can have a full understanding as to why they need to do that. So it's like one half of the summit informs the other half. I'm afraid to look like Ricky Gervais on The Office by going like this, but you know, one half informs the other half. So it works really well for everybody in that regard. But anyway, Maeve, look, I am delighted to have had the chance. I've been really enjoyed talking to you this afternoon, and really look forward to sweating with you at the side of the stage, because I'll be there with you in the Aviva Stadium on the 11th and 12th of April. It'll be all right on the night, as the fella says. We'll get through it. It'll be absolutely great. So thank you so much for your time, Maeve, and I will talk to you very soon.